right, hi guys. I heard that a bunch of you were having trouble figuring out the claims and the reasons on this assignment today. Um, so here's the deal with this type of tracing an argument. When you've got one author that is presenting both sides of the argument to you, you have to read it very, very closely to figure it out. It's not going to be written in a way that says, this person thinks this and this person thinks that. It's not always going to be super obvious. You have to do what we call a close read. So that means you might need to read it more than once. When I do these, what I do is I read it through first one time just so that I understand the article. And then I go back and I try to pick out the different sides. I don't try to do it while I'm reading it the first time because it's just too hard. How can you tell which side is which if it's the first time you're reading it and you haven't finished it yet? So the best way to do these is to just go through, quickly read the whole thing. You don't need to analyze it. You don't need to try and figure anything out. Just read it through so that you understand the topic and you understand what the author is writing about. And then the second time that you go through and read it is when you're going to analyze it and look really closely for those things that you need to figure out. So in this particular article, it is about whether or not, and it says it right here, college sports bring in billions of dollars a year, but the athletes who play them don't get a penny. Is that fair? So I had quite a few messages from students saying, well, I don't know what the two sides are. If you're ever stuck and you can't figure it out, go back to the title. That should help you figure it out if it's a well-written piece and it's got a decent title. Should he get paid? So I can already be thinking about the fact that probably this article is going to be arguing, yes, college athletes should be paid, or no, college athletes should not be paid. I'm just making that prediction based off of the title and the subtitle here. So it says it was February 20th, 2019, and the basketball game between Duke University's Blue Devils and the University of North Carolina's Tar Heels was about to begin. The stands were packed and the fans were pumped. Tickets for the game had almost reached Super Bowl prices. One ticket went for a whopping $10,652. Duke and UNC have a long-standing and super intense rivalry, but that was only part of the excitement. The other part, Duke player Zion Williamson. At 6 feet 7 inches and 285 pounds, bigger than most NBA players, Williamson, 18, is unlike any player college basketball has ever seen. On the court, he is as graceful as a dancer and as powerful as a freight train. His sky-high jumps and show-stopping slam dunks have earned him millions of fans. He's often compared to Michael Jordan and LeBron James. You might think that this teenage prodigy is raking in the big bucks, but in fact, he doesn't make a cent. All that money that the Blue Devils bring in goes to Duke, not to Williamson or to any other player. That's because, according to the National Collegiate Athletic Association, NCAA, college athletes are not allowed to be paid, but should they be? So because I have already read through this article once, I am going to go through. So this would be like the second time I'm reading it. I am going to go through and start looking for these two arguments now. So the first thing that I notice right here is that the NCAA does not allow them to be paid. Okay. So I'm going to highlight that blue because that is against college athletes being paid. And then here we kind of have the other claim. Should they be? Maybe they should be. Why should the colleges be allowed to get all of this money from the ticket sales and the merchandise and all of that kind of stuff if the athletes themselves don't get anything? So that's kind of what this argument here is about. So scrolling down, it says a big business. College sports, particularly basketball and football, are a very big business involving a very large amount of money. Ticket sales are just one slice of the pie. A top team can secure lucrative endorsement deals. For example, Nike pays Duke millions to outfit its players in Nike gear, essentially turning the players into walking advertisements. Top college teams can also help increase their school enrollments and bump up donations from alumni. And then there's the money from TV deals and merchandise like hats and sweatshirts. So if these teams bring in so much money, why don't the players get any of it? After all, without the players, there wouldn't be any teams. So here is your first reason supporting the fact that these athletes should be paid. Now, I think what makes this tricky is it's kind of written the opposite way we would expect. Normally, we would expect the author to put the reason first and then go through and give us all of these different examples after. This author sort of flip-flopped it and did it backwards. So this is where that close reading and really trying to pick it apart and analyze it is going to come in. So in this case, they're saying like one of the reasons they should be paid is because without these players, there wouldn't be any sports teams. The schools wouldn't be getting all of this money from endorsement deals and Nike, and they wouldn't have all of these kids wanting to go to their school. They wouldn't be getting donations from alumni. If you don't know what alumni are, they are people who used to go to the college and have graduated from it, and then they'll donate money back to it. So this is going to be our first reason that, the players should get paid because without them, there is no sport team. Then it goes on to say not cheap. The thing is, colleges don't just make a huge amount of money on sports, they also spend a huge amount. So now I can see that the author is going to start giving us the flip side. Yes, they do make lots of money, but they also have to spend a lot of money. Stadiums are not cheap. Neither are the equipment and team travel, not to mention coaches' salaries and scholarships for student athletes. According to a 2014 NCAA study, only 24 of the top 129 college football programs make a profit. Some say that forcing schools to pay athletes could do more harm than good. You should be noticing right here, we've got a keyword. Some say that. And here is our first reason against paying these athletes. Some people say that forcing schools to pay athletes could do more harm than good. And now our author is going to explain this. If players were paid, many schools might not be able to afford to keep their athletic programs running. They'd certainly have less money for sports like swimming, cross country, gymnastics, and soccer, sports that don't bring in the kind of money that football and basketball do. Why should the students who play these sports have to suffer for the benefit of a few? Then again, top coaches make millions. Is it fair for them to make so much while the athletes themselves get nothing? So here's an interesting keyword that I have not pointed out to you before. When you've got then again thrown in, they're switching to the other side. So in this case, they're also pointing out in the same paragraph that coaches make millions of dollars. So why can't the athletes be paid also? So I'm going to highlight that as yellow because that is supporting the idea that the athletes should be paid. Hey, the coaches are getting paid millions of dollars. Why shouldn't the athletes be paid? Then it goes on to say, after all, being a college athlete can be like working a full-time job while also going to school. A 2006 NCAA study found that top-tier college athletes dedicate an average of 37 hours per week to their sport. So I'm going to highlight this as another reason here because it's saying that they should be paid because basically being an athlete is their job. They're putting in almost 37 hours per week just to their sport, just to practicing and training and games and things like that. And then on top of those 37 hours a week, they're also going to school and being full-time students. So this supports the idea that they should be paid because basically it's like having a job. The amount of time that they have to put into it, the argument you could say is that they should be paid for it. So scrolling down, it says paid to play. On the other hand, that should stand out to you as a keyword. It's not quite accurate to say that college athletes get nothing. Many get tuition scholarships. Top athletes can even get completely free educations, often with housing and food costs included. They may also get free access to trainers and tutors. Plus, college players get coaching experience and exposure that can set them up for success if they pursue professional careers in their sport. So the flip side here is arguing that, on the other hand, maybe they don't get paid money, but they do get other things that cost money, such as tuition, housing, food cost. They get trainers, they get tutors, they get coaching, they get all of this stuff that, if they had to actually pay for it, would equal thousands and thousands of dollars. I mean, just tuition at a good school can be, $50,000 a year. I mean, that's not unheard of. So if they're getting a scholarship because they're a good athlete, they're getting access to something that they don't have to pay for. So I'm going to highlight this part as, that's not for. This is against. Because it's saying, like, yeah, they're not getting paid, but they are getting something. So you can't really complain that you're not getting paid money, because you are getting all of these other things that cost money. What's more, if young athletes want to get paid to play, they do have options. For example, they can join a professional league overseas. Soon, elite high school athlete or high school basketball players will also have the chance to earn $125,000 a season in the NBA's minor league, and potentially go straight from there to the pros. And for extraordinary athletes like Williamson, college is often only a brief stopover before they are old enough to go pro anyway. Currently, the NBA requires players to be at least 19 years old and a year out of high school. So this is another argument against, because basically it's saying, if you need money or you want to make money, there are other ways for you to get it other than expecting the school to pay you. So that is an argument against paying athletes. Then again, fewer than 2% of college athletes go on to have professional careers. So then again is a keyword. As for the rest, some may look back and notice that while their school got a lot from them, they didn't get much from their school. Some college athletes are so busy with their sport that they don't have enough time or energy to devote to their studies. As a result, they may fall behind or even drop out. So I think that in here, this paragraph, we don't really have another reason. We just have more examples and support, kind of, I think it's more for paying them, that, yeah, maybe they'll go on to make money, but only 2% of college athletes actually go on to the pros. And then it's also kind of pointing out here that another reason maybe they should be paid is, like, yeah, they're getting this free college education, but in some cases, they're so dedicated to their sport that they don't really get much out of their time being in college. Would paying athletes really help, though, or would it make things worse? Some say, we know that's a keyword, that paying college athletes would turn them into employees. And isn't the whole point of college to be a student and get an education? So this is another example against that. The whole point of going to college is about the education, that it's not about making money. And that if you did start paying them, they would become employees of the college instead of students. Then it goes on to say, a scary moment. As for Williamson, his future in the NBA seems uncertain. That is, of course, unless something unforeseen, like a career-ending injury, should happen. That awful possibility surely crossed many minds when 36 seconds into the big Duke UNC game in February, his left sneaker suddenly fell apart, causing Williamson to fall and sprain his knee. Fortunately, the injury was not too serious. Williamson took a few weeks off, then returned to the court ready to dazzle his fans, but not to get paid. So this last paragraph here, just kind of wrapping up the story of this athlete Williamson, and kind of pointing out the fact that, maybe these athletes need to be paid because who knows how long they're going to be injury free and able to play. So there's no guarantee that even if you are, the best athlete or the best basketball player, the best football player, there's no guarantee that, an injury might not end your career. So there is an argument in there that, these athletes should be paid for as long as they can actually play the sport. So I am not going to go through and type all of these up for you. I went through and I was able to kind of give you the different claims for and against. And then down here at the bottom, I would like for you to just do reason 1, 2, and 3 for each side. And then tomorrow we'll go in and we'll go over the evidence and then we'll compare the two sides. Okay. I hope that this helped you to kind of figure it out. I think that the most important thing here is you've got to read it more than once in order to figure these out. You read it the first time just to understand the topic, and then go through and read it a second time a lot closer and trying to figure out those two different sides and reasons. So that's pretty much it. If you have any questions, you can send me a message in Remind, or you can use your Gmail to email me.